Toastmaster. Thank you, fellow club members, for giving me this opportunity to share the results of the anonymous survey that I shared last week to gain feedback from club members to understand your perception on how the club is meeting Toastmaster standards. This is a little bit different for the presentation. A typical presentation would run 60 to 90 minutes, and the typical presentation would have more discussion, brainstorming to examine where there might be perceived gaps in performance and to generate ideas of what the club may do to address those performance gaps. I think what I'd like to do as we go through the data is to reflect on how the club is addressing some of these same areas, addressing these standards, how the club has been addressing those standards over the last 12 months. So I'm going to share my presentation, PowerPoint presentation. I'll sort of walk through what I found. Well, I'm trying to advance the slide. That didn't quite work. Let me back out of that. Here we go. Moments of Truth. A moment of truth is an episode where a person comes in contact with any aspect of the Toastmasters experience and forms an impression of a club's quality and service. That's Toastmasters' dry definition of moments of truth. In other words, the experiences that define, in my words, the experiences that define the effectiveness of our club. Lance, you inspired me with a speech earlier this year about the difference between preventative maintenance and repair. And I think you may have even illustrated the difference of cleaning the gutters, preventative maintenance versus gutters falling off the side of the house, to something in between with maybe saplings growing out of the gutters. And that made me think about how moments of truth really should be used on an annual basis so a club can make adjustments along the way instead of waiting for the heavy lift that's required when there really are critical failures with a club. So a club can choose to review the standards annually or simply wait to react to the critical failures, but it's much easier for everyone to have that self-awareness and then adapt along the way and support continuous improvement efforts. The standards. If you looked at the form last week, you would see that the standards addressed first impressions, these 6 categories, as I recall: first impressions, membership orientation, fellowship variety and communication, program planning and meeting organization, membership strength, and achievement recognition. Based on the feedback before I get to the feedback that was received, I thought it was worth noting that Early Risers of Mount Vernon this year has already achieved, when compared to other clubs, more DCP goals than 32%, 32.7% of all clubs in our district, more DCP goals than 33.2% of all clubs worldwide, higher member retention than 94% of all clubs in this district, our district, and higher member retention than 91.1% of all clubs worldwide. So just based on those facts, on that data, I think that it would suggest to me that our club should do a better job on following the Distinguished Club program, but we should really take pride in what we've already accomplished, what we've demonstrated with our membership retention rate.
Eric,
yes.
Are we supposed to see a slide?
Oh, are you not seeing slides?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Well, I'm going to try sharing again. When I shared before, the I wasn't able to advance the slides.
It's okay. We like seeing your face.
Yes, and I could not see my face. So I can only imagine what you were saying. Let's see what I have here.
I am wondering if it's the same issue I had when I tried to do a PowerPoint and the Zoom couldn't handle both the PowerPoint
Hmm.
and um, the Zoom.
Okay.
That could be a possibility. So,
Here we are.
Okay. So this is what you would have seen as I fast forward through the slides. There's our saplings growing out of the gutters, the different standards, the data about what our club, where we can improve in terms of following the Distinguished Club program, and what we really should take pride in with our high retention rate. So the feedback, anonymous feedback that was received, showed the majority of members, when the majority of members responded to a category, a standard, or an elements within a standard, I put that in bold and in red. And surprisingly to me, the majority of members felt there were areas in all of those categories that we could improve upon. So a real ambitious group. And we're going to unpack, we'll go through these as best I can in the remaining 20 minutes or so to unpack the elements of those different standards where the majority of club members felt that we could improve. Membership strength had most of the elements where club members commented, where they provided feedback that our club never meets or rarely meets that standard. And clearly the club has fewer than 20 more or more members, so that's not a surprise to me that that was an element that was identified. Members are retained. That means that one, it's not in red, but it is bold. So that means at least one member commented or identified that that was an area that needed improvement. Again, promotion in club's organization or community, that's an area where the majority of members felt could be improved upon. Club programs are varied and exciting. Toastmasters sponsoring new members are recognized. So when I think about over the last year, I see effort that's being made in promoting our club's organization in the community. And I'm thinking of our open house that's coming up. I'm thinking of at the last officers meeting where there was discussion about how to raise the profile of the club and how to announce and share this opportunity for an open house at a different time than our normal club meeting within the community. So to me, that's encouraging. And regular membership building programs. So I think these are areas, at least 3 of the 4 areas, are areas that the officers and the club members may continue to work on to brainstorm at a different time to think about how to address some of those perceived performance gaps. I think as that is done in this standard, in this category, and in others that we'll discuss, it's only a matter of time. We just have to be patient, and it's only a matter of time before the club will achieve its incremental milestones to increase membership to 15 and then increase membership to 20 and beyond. Achievement recognition, that was the second category that had the most elements where club members felt that there was a need for improvement. Progress chart displayed and maintained. Member achievements recognized with a ceremony, drawing attention to the member achievements. Club and member achievements publicized, and the Distinguished Club program used for planning and recognition. When I think back over the last year, I think the club has made, has improved in following the Distinguished Club program, both in discussions at the club meetings and at the officer meetings, the planning efforts to assure that officers are trained, to make sure that educational goals are known. Progress chart displayed and maintained, that might be an area that should be an area that could take what has verbally been discussed and present it in a more visual way and make it available to all members at the meeting time. The next standard, fellowship, variety, and communication. And again, these have several elements. The feedback reflected that the club members felt that guests usually are greeted warmly, that the meetings are enjoyable and educational. But they also identified that there were some areas that needed improvement, with the majority of members reporting that we could do better, having regularly scheduled social events, participating in area, district, and international events, inter-club events, and one or more members suggesting that the club newsletter and our website should be updated on a more regular basis. Again, I look back over the last year, and it is apparent to me that the website really was transformed. And I looked at the website again just last night, announcing the open house, and it makes me smile every time I see it, because I'm seeing real people, real club members, I have a sense of, if I was a guest to that club, or I was looking at different clubs to visit, I'd already be put at ease, because I would recognize the members of that club. The one area I think I might want to push back a little bit is the regularly scheduled social events. That probably is true if we are thinking of events that are completely outside of the Toastmasters framework or our Toastmaster meeting. But when I think about the extra time that has been set aside for members to arrive early and have that time together and share some snacks together and catch up what happened with what may have happened over the last week, I think an argument can be made, at least from my point of view, that you've incorporated that and fostered that fellowship in a meeting every week. So I think that's something that we shouldn't take for granted. Not every club does that. And I think when I first joined the club, and I saw that amount of time that was set aside for gathering, for fellowship, it was different. I noticed that it was different. It took me a while to really appreciate how that helped draw members together. So I don't think we should lose sight of that. I think that's something that's good and should be encouraged. Next category was membership orientation. And of the elements that were discussed, the two that most members commented on, that replied that our club can do a better job, is a formal induction, including a presentation of pen and manuals. Well, that's a little bit dated with manuals, but that is how it's identified that was how it was identified in the survey. But suggesting some type of formal induction, including a presentation of a pen to welcome new Toastmasters, and the assignment of mentors to either current club members or in this case, new members, would be an area to be improved upon. This would be difficult to judge over the last 12 months, because I think maybe the only two new members that come to my mind would be Scotia and myself, although we did have, I think, members rejoin, a member or more rejoin. Next category was program planning and meeting organization. And the feedback identified that most members felt that two areas that really we should focus on improvement would be the program and agenda publicized in advance, and all projects are manual projects. I recall the latter being discussed just recently to take advantage to support the ongoing education advancement and credit for the speeches by having all projects, to be sure that all projects are manual projects. Program agenda publicized in advance, fair enough, but I do see that agenda publicized on the website, so it's available. But there was definitely feedback that was an area that could be improved upon as well. And finally, I think that was the last category. Was first impressions, and the majority of members responded back that a guest book and name tags should be provided. And I think that's a fair point. The club did make improvements to have a guest packet available for guests, but we did have some members, some guests attend, potential guests attend. Their name, their contact information wasn't retained, and there might have been a missed opportunity to turn them from guests into potential members. So that is also something that the group should consider. Well, I rapidly went through those areas, thinking that in 30 minutes that we wouldn't have really time to discuss or brainstorm those ideas. But I would like to open it up to discussion now, because I still see about 10 minutes or so of time that I allotted for this presentation this morning. And so that's a really good opportunity to gain your feedback. And if not, brainstorming about what we should do next or what we can do next, about how you feel we have made improvements to address some of those gaps over the last 12 months. So I'm going to just walk this back to the different categories. But with that, let me open it up. Skoshi, what do you think?
I really like how you did this, and I'm just wondering, do we have Toastmaster pins for people who have achieved maybe their competent communicator or pathway level that we could at least award, even if we haven't presented it to people when they're a new member? That might be a way of recognition.
I think all we have are member pins.
Yeah. I think a way of either recognizing with a pin or a ribbon that you've achieved your competent communicator or your pathways. I don't know if pathways does have ribbons for those levels.
Yeah, that is new as well. I don't know.
I can check.
What surprised me when I saw the survey results is that the majority of members felt there were serious failures in all areas. And I would encourage the club not to be overly critical with our collective efforts. I think you had a strong club over a year ago, and we still have a very strong club. There is, if I can crowbar the word of the day, a plum, and we should approach this with confidence. We should be a plum as we demonstrate how our club meets Toastmasters standards to the guests that come to our club.
2 questions. Has anyone completed a pathway yet? No.
Scotia, you raised your hand?
I've completed pathways, but not in this club.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Lance was pretty close to getting that.
I set a goal to finish this by this time next year. I'm not sure exactly what happens when I finish this path. We get a ribbon or a pin or, I don't understand.
That's what we're just talking about.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
So relevant.
Yep.
Yeah. What happens at the end? But yes, I guess I'm fairly close.
It seems like what your survey showed is that we've been quite stagnant
Hmm.
in this club. And I think that really hinges a lot on our membership, lack of growth, lack of new blood.
Okay. Well, it certainly does make a difference. A club that has 12 members versus 20 members means it's a lot. It requires a lot more heavy lifting of the current members than spreading out the roles and assignments, and it makes it more difficult to respond if members are missing. I agree. I think that looking at, I think that's a valid point. I think looking at the data, and if you look at the percentage of when compared to other clubs, where we have advanced or where we have followed the Distinguished Club program, there's probably a lack of progress in the educational awards over the years. Maybe the training is as well, and that I think that is definitely an area that needs improvement.
So just a question, because I'm totally ignorant of these things, so that's why I ask questions. With the legacy program, did you get ribbons and pins and a crown of gold for your CC and your CL and various other things other than just a certificate in the mail?
Right.
In my file, going back many moons, is just certificates. You know,
Okay.
and including some of what was this, DTS or DT something? DTM that I got.
You referenced it in there, in his slideshow?
So the Distinguished Toastmaster would be DTM. I have seen this approach in different ways. The method of recognition that I'm most familiar with is that ribbons were awarded, much like we give awards at our meeting, but ribbons would be handed out to members as they competed with each other for best speaker, best table topics speaker, best evaluator. That would be one way. I think the other thing that I'm familiar with another club is that we would update our name tags. We would actually have name tags, and then the credentials would be listed on the name tags. So as people achieve their competent leader or competent communicator, that would be reflected on a name tag. And that was a way of both giving them something that would identify that achievement all the time because they're wearing their name tag. It would also be reflected on agendas. And when they were presented a new name tag, it would be a way for the club to recognize that achievement in real time. I do think, go ahead.
That is also part of the training because it teaches you how to present an award and how to accept an award. And if you watch many times, it's really bumbled in presentations, other than Toastmasters I'm talking about. Not that we don't bumble them here too. But that's one of the things that we can learn how to do better, both giving and receiving.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I also think we're really at a crossroads in that because the legacy of program is about to go away, and we have the majority of Toastmasters very familiar with the legacy program, and many have continued to try to complete certain projects that they may have had to receive recognition under the legacy program, and they've held back from participating in pathways. I think that challenge will take care of itself in just a matter of months. Next year, everyone will be focused on pathways. Questions like, how many projects does it take to complete a pathway? Is there a ribbon? Is there a way we can recognize pathways achievement? How do we move from feeling uncomfortable with a new approach to becoming very familiar with pathways? I predict that will take care of itself within the next 18 months, because it's the only game in town. After the legacy program goes away, everyone will be working together on pathways. There's a great opportunity there, by the way, for mentoring, especially new members, because we can all relate to how awkward and uncomfortable we are with transitioning from the legacy program to pathways, or many of us can feel that. And I think that once we gain experience, we'll be in a much better position to mentor new members to our club in pathways.
I think it's important that even members who are not comfortable with being on the internet, you can still print out the projects. Somebody can help you with that. It is possible to order those projects. So don't get totally afraid of that process, because there are other ways around it.
Any other thoughts or comments?
One of the things that occurred to me, Eric, was in the legacy program, we were sent the certificates directly. And there had to been, you had to bring the certificate to the meeting to have it presented. Now, as I understand pathways, there is a way for the club officers to monitor accomplishments so that we can give, I can't remember what the term was, medals or something to signify accomplishments or completions. And those should be done at a meeting.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, that's excellent. I think they call them badges, right? Badges?
That's it.
I think so. And you're right. I believe the BPE can monitor the progress. The base managers can monitor the progress.
Yes.
And yes, that would be a great opportunity to highlight those at meetings. Yeah, good idea.
I think one item that you brought up that I would like to reinforce and just highlight is the good work that Aaron and Stella and Shelley have been doing in overhauling the website and getting Facebook kickstarted, and our various other steps that we're taking for social media outreach.
Yeah.
Getting those stale stock photos off the website, making it more personalized to the club, I think is a very welcome change.
Sukoshi's been a very big help in that as well. She has been instrumental in helping charge and lead us towards making those changes.
Yeah, we spent quite a bit of time on Saturday on that, so it was fun with Zoom.
All four of you, I appreciate that effort, and it hasn't gone without notice.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And I just have to say that's my impression of the club as well. I have seen so many good things happen since I've been a member of our club over the last year. And it's not lost on me that those good things were happening before I became a member of the club. We have more going right than wrong, and it's easy. I think sometimes it's easy to focus on where there are gaps, especially when it comes to that membership count. But I see I'm real happy to be a member of this club. The last thing I'll leave the club with is that to encourage you to look at moments of truth on an annual basis, because it just builds good habits, and it's much easier to address gaps as soon as they appear than when there's a critical situation. So thank you very much. Thanks for participating in the anonymous survey, and thank you for letting me share the results.